It's Thursday night in time for one of the longest running serials on television. Top of the Pops. And seeing over the charts, Sad Cafe.
I don't like Mike Reid. For a Radio 1 DJ, he always seemed just too stuffy and serious, didn't he? Like, it reminds me of like that teacher you had at secondary school who just had no sense of humour, but yet somehow he was a TV and radio star. Anyway, welcome to this Top of the Pops reaction on the 1st of November, and we're looking back at the episode that was originally broadcast today, all the way 43 years ago in 1979, the 1st of November 79. Sad Cafe are playing us through the top 30. Haven't seen them in the charts yet. Blondie are at number 13. First time I've reacted to a 1979 edition. So nice to get another year from the 70s under my belt. I know there's still maybe 3 more in the 1970s years-wise I've not done yet, but Michael Jackson at 6. Buggles at 5, that'll be presumably Video Killed the Radio Star. ABBA at 4, Sad Cafe there at 3, and the number 1 is Lena Martell.
Those are the records selling most around the country this week. And fast heading towards the chart, Ron and Russell Mail are back with a new single, Sparks, and Try Out for the Human Race.
Oh, right, okay. Try Out for the Human Race by Sparks kicks us off. I wouldn't say I'm overly familiar with a lot of Sparks' work. Some of it I am. I'm more familiar now, though, because as of me recording this, and bear in mind I do record these quite well in advance, but I recently watched the Sparks Brothers documentary on Netflix, and I thought it was excellent. So feel free to check Netflix now to see if it's still up. Hopefully it is, but as I say, I'm recording this, you know, a couple of months or so previously to when you'll actually be watching this, and that's assuming you'll watch this when it comes out. You could be watching this years after the fact, but be it Netflix or wherever, I do recommend seeking out the Sparks Brothers documentary. It was really good. A little bit over long, I thought. I mean, it maybe could have done with a little bit of editing in places, but it was a fascinating look at two, you know, this eccentric double act, the sorry, not the Sparks, they're just Sparks. There'll be some Sparks fans who'd be annoyed at me saying the Sparks. But yeah, Russell is the lead singer, and Ron is the guy who looks a little bit like kind of the illegitimate love child of Freddie Mercury and Adolf Hitler. Oh, what a pregnancy that'd be. Not one I'm familiar with from the Sparks particularly, but I know they were getting into that kind of new wavy electro sort of, this little slight sort of post-disco vibe here. The Spark songs I know, I mean, Beat the Clock, which the Cuban Boys sampled, for, what did they sample? They definitely sampled it. Might have been Oh My God, They Killed Kenny. Although, no, that sampled Kenny. I don't know, I'm trying to think there, and it means I'm not concentrated on enjoying the music. And this is alright. Yeah, Sparks. My favourite Sparks song is When Will I Get to Play My Way, or When Will I Get to Sing My Way. That's great, that is.
Blackbirds, even funky chickens. So the latest one is a tribute to the sparrow.
Right, okay. So it's like a school choir. What the fuck is this? Make the most of it. I'm speechless. Not sure if Reed announced the artists. It's not an early effort from St. Winifred's Girls' School Choir, is it? I thought their one and only single was "There's No One Quite Like Grandma," which would have been, I think, yeah, it would have been the following year, 1980. But this is something to do with sparrows. Obviously, I say it every time. Any information I find out will be on the ticker bar, the info bar that's running at the bottom of the screen. But this is... I was going to say this is awful. I mean, it is, but I mean, I don't... It's a novelty song. It's a bunch of kids, although, you know, all these kids will be like, you know, in the 50s now, won't they? So, you know, if they got to that age and they can't handle a bit of criticism, then it's a bit of a poor do, but... Actually, I said it was a girls' choir, but I think there is some boys in there, isn't there? This is, and weirdly, I've heard a lot of novelty songs, because, like, you know, they just do the rounds, don't they? Like, at, you know, kids' parties, certainly back in my day, at, like, school discos and stuff like that. But this is actually one I've never heard before. Or if I have heard it, I forgot about it. Oh dear, that was appalling.
And now, live, it starts just at the end of their extensive tour with a new single, Can't Get Enough of Your Love.
Darts, Can't Get Enough of Your Love. I do know Darts, I think. Funny year 79, because once I'm into the 80s, or maybe a couple of years into the 80s, maybe sort of 82, 83, I feel more in a comfort zone. Whereas this sort of turn of the decade, late 70s into the early 80s, you know, I'm still a bit iffy, and my knowledge isn't brilliant. I do know Darts. I'm trying to. Oh, what was their bigger? I mean, this was, you know, presumably a big single, top 30 at the very least, and you'll see the chart position on screen. But oh, what was the? Was it Daddy Cool? Their big hit. I think they had more than one top 10 hit. Anyway, Daddy Cool. That's ringing a bell, unless I'm miscrediting them. The lead singer of Darts has got a lovely gold mini dress on there, so that's nice, and it's quite a pleasant track. This. I'm trying to determine what genre this would be. It's kind of leaning into sort of new wave. Very, very slight reggae undercurrent to it, so, you know, maybe like verging on ska, but yeah, I'm enjoying this. So yeah, so far so good. Apart from whoever they were singing about the bleeding sparrow before, but even that, I mean, it was amusing to watch it. You know, even if I've just discovered another one of those singles that should always rank the ubiquitous worst singles ever released lists that, you know, Channel 4, Channel 5 tend to throw out every few years. But yeah, I remember I don't think I like Daddy Cool very much, and that I'm still worrying that I'm miscrediting that to Darts. But yeah, I like this. I think this is a nice single. Could be a cover version, but I don't know. I wouldn't swear to it.
Can't Get Enough of Your Love. Jet had 3 hits in 1977, 3 in 78, and this one is their 3rd in 79. It's Eton.
Ooh. Well, you know what? I think this episode's really strong. Another single I really like here, Eton Rifles. I am familiar with this. I think it's between this and Going Underground, which would be my favourite Jam singles. Paul Weller, of course, there on lead vocals, and I think he was he guitarist or bassist? I don't know. He's one or the other. So yeah, Eton Rifles, great single. I know my dad was quite a fan of this single. It was one that I often used to hear on one of his taped off the radio compilation cassettes, and he was the one who always used to sing along to it, but deliberately changed the lyrics to "eating trifles," which I'm sure my dad wasn't the only one to do that. You know, I'm sure that was quite a common. Probably, I don't know, that could have been derived from a sketch on a comedy show. I don't know, maybe Kenny Everett or something for this era. But yeah, great single this. Some backing singers dressed up as Mounties by the look of it. Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Well, yeah, no complaints about this single whatsoever. Great jam single, as I say, Going Underground also like. Beat Surrender, which I think might have been their final single, and would have been a #1, I believe, too. Sort of 82-ish. I like that. That was sort of leaning more towards the sort of soul kind of sound that Weller would dip his toe in further when he formed the Style Council shortly after. Well, of course, here in 1979, the Jam was still in their mod revival phase. And they were a big band, weren't they? They had a lot of top 10 singles, and towards the end, I think everything they released went either straight in at #1 or nearly to #1 and then climbed up. So, you know, they were a big singles band. They're a band. I'd probably enjoy their albums if I decided to buy them, and maybe I will try to get a Jam album into my collection. I do have kind of one. It's a mini disc, but it's like a Jam tribute album from people like Liam Gallagher, Ocean Colour Scene, etc.
This is haunting, it's eerie. It's the second Birdsong on tonight's show. It's Lena Lovitch and Birdsong.
Alright. Lena Lovitch. There's someone called Lena at #1, weren't there? So I think we're gonna have two ladies called Lena on the edition tonight, unless the second one happens to be cut. I don't know if there's any cuts in this, by the way. I've scrubbed through to make sure the quality of the video and audio is good, but I've not watched really anything in it, so I will apologise if there is any cuts or if I have to make any myself. So this is weird, isn't it? I mean, it's an improvement on the Sparrow song earlier. Strange that, yeah, facial expressions are a little bit overdone, I would say, but you know, this might be her first time on Top of the Pops, could even be her first time on television for all I know. You know, enjoy yourself, you know, take it to the max. I'm sounding like a bloody Pepsi advert now. Well, Lena Lovitch, trying to think if the name rings a bell. It doesn't really. She kind of looks a little bit familiar. I wonder if maybe she was like associated with someone, you know, like Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees. You originally saw her like she was like part of the Bromley contingent entourage for the Sex Pistols when they appeared on the infamous Today Show with Bill Grundy. And you saw Susie Sue in the background, and Grundy, you know, is a bit sleazy towards her. I don't know, maybe she's from that kind of scene. Maybe she's hung around with the maybe not the Sex Pistols, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, and I know that obviously Susie Sue, who is nothing to do with this, presumably, but she went on to be, you know, well, she formed Susie and the Banshees, and she was an artist in her own right, rather than just like a hanger-on in the punk scene. Of course, the punk would have, you know, the punk was over by '79, but we did have post-punk. I would class this as new wave. It's a strange thing, but it's not bad. It's quite indie, really, isn't it? I mean, I don't think we had a first official UK independent chart until, I don't know, we're only looking this up recently, 1980. I'm saying indie as in the sound, rather than it actually being released on an indie label.
she's going to
So there is a difference.
about 10 years' time. Right now, here are 5 stars dancing to 1. It's Earth, Wind and Fire, as done by Legs & Co.
Alright, so a Legs & Co. performance, or dance, to Earth, Wind and Fire. Legs & Co. obviously one of the Top of the Pops dance troupes who were still being used. How long did Legs & Co. survive? Till about the early 80s, and then I think there was one more dance troupe that lasted till about 1984, and then by then it was just either live, studio performances or promo videos, because I mean promo videos were certainly on the rise as from the late 70s onwards. This one's not ringing a bell so far. Falsetto vocals there from now Earth, Wind and Fire. I think they may have had at least 2 lead singers, but I know at least one of them was Philip Bailey, who did the excellent Easy Lover duet single with Phil Collins in the mid-80s. So I'm assuming Philip Bailey is providing vocals on this track as well. Well, Legs & Co. are certainly living up to their name in this edition, aren't they? How are you finding this episode of TOTP so far? As I say, I think this has been really strong. This one I'm not feeling it massively. It's not completely awful, but the jam was good. Sparks was good. Even that weird bird song thing, Lena Lovitch previously. That I think if I listened to that a few more times, that would probably grow on me. Oh, and darts, yeah, in fact, darts, it's the tie between that and Jam for my favourite song on the show so far. I think both of those are really strong singles. 1979's a year I haven't paid an awful lot of attention to for the, the music, in chart music anyway. I mean, I was paying attention to acts like Joy Division, obviously, who released Unknown Pleasures not too long before this.
6 good movers, 5 of them Legs & Co. and the other one Star from Earth, Wind and Fire, up this week from number 27 to number 16. And right now it's Thin Lizzy and Sarah.
Did you say Sarah there by Thin Lizzy? So I think this is the first time I've seen Thin Lizzy on one of these Top of the Pops editions that I'm reacting to. Of course, Phil Lynott there, the Irishman on lead vocals, bit of a Hellraiser. This seems quite a relaxed and a rather more gentler paced Thin Lizzy song than other ones I've heard before. Not a band I'm massively familiar with. I know some people in the vinyl community do quite like Thin Lizzy. I think Richard McCook is a fan. I don't know if Richard ever watches any of these Top of the Pops reactions. If you do, Richard, give us a wave in the comments and let us know your recommendations for Thin Lizzy. But they're not a band that I know all together that well. But I do know a little bit of the life story of Phil Lynott. I know that as a mixed race guy growing up in Ireland, he suffered certain prejudices growing up, and probably throughout his adult life really. He was when I say Hellraiser, I mean you can work out what I mean by that. He had his vices certainly, and he lived fast and he did die young. I mean, I think he was only in his 30s when he passed away in what year was it? I don't want to say because I'll probably get it wrong, but I'll put it on screen at some point in the ticker bar. And Phil Lynott, of course, would in about about 2 or 3 years' time, go on to provide the next Top of the Pops theme tune, Yellow Pearl, which I think was co-written and produced with Midge Ure of Ultravox fame. Oh yeah, Phil Lynott, you know, a big artist, Thin Lizzy big band. I think Gary Moore, the blues rock guitarist, I think he played in Thin Lizzy at some point. Whether is with them here, I don't know. I'm not sure I'd recognise him necessarily. I probably would, but I'm assuming there's no Gary Moore on stage there. That was okay. Nothing. I wasn't overly fond of it.
12 hits under her belt, 11 solo, 2 number ones, and also a single with Chris Norman. This is her new one. She's in love with you. It's Suzi Quatro.
Suzi Quatro. Wow. So if you, even though a lot of this episode has kind of felt 1980s, a couple of months before the 1980s began, because we're getting like a lot of new wave from like Lena Lovitch and the Sparks, and of course the Jam themselves. Although they started out and were big in the late 70s, they carried on having, you know, top 10 hits and stuff into the 1980s. But for me, the Suzi Quatro just screams 1970s. You know, I couldn't say when she had her first UK hit. I don't think she'd been going as long as the 60s. I think she might have been a little bit too young to be starting that early. I could be wrong. I mean, she's an American lady, but she's one of those Americans who kind of was almost unofficially adopted here. And you know, she had a lot more success on this side of the pond than across in her native land. But yeah, I would say early or mid 70s was when Suzi Quatro really exploded on the scene. She's done some acting as well. If I've seen her in something, you know what? I've just realised what it was. I think she's in an episode of Minder, of all things. So that would have been early 80s, although Minder did actually start this year in 1979. Yeah, it weren't a very big part, because often they'd have like a, you know, fairly prominent female role. If anything, just to like have a woman for Dennis Waterman to kind of, you know, leer over and sleep with every week. But I know Suzi Quatro, I think Dennis Waterman tried it on with. I can't remember what the episode was now. Maybe I'll put it on screen, even though it's not really relevant. But yeah, I think it was a very minor role, and she wasn't on screen very long. You know, 5 minutes if that, and then she was done really. So yeah, it's been a mixed bag this edition, but what I've enjoyed on here, I've really enjoyed Darts, the Jam, and I suppose the Sparks as well. Although I think there's other Sparks singles that I do prefer.
Suzi Quatro, and she's in love with you. And now a guy who's going to be doing my programme on Radio 1 next week, fresh from the last night of the Proms. It's B.A. Roberts.
B.A. Robertson. Not an artist that I'm overly familiar with. I know the name.
Some of us have talent, some of us just haven't. Some are super sensitive like Mr. Spock. Chose my vocation, took a little application on an overnight.
I think he might be someone else who's done some acting. He looks familiar, but it looks familiar like I feel like I've seen him in some TV show rather than like I've seen him on Top of the Pops or performing music somewhere before. I don't think I've heard this before. Yeah, I think there's some, you know, good, you know, big selling for the, you know, relatively big selling anyway, singles that have been on this edition, and a majority of them I've not heard before, or if I have, it was just so many years ago, I just have no chance of remembering. I've seen him in something. It'd be funny if he ended up being in Minder as well after Suzi Quattro, wouldn't it? I don't think he was in Minder, but if he was, I'll put it on the screen. Yeah, I quite like this actually. It's one of those funny sort of new wave type things, isn't it? That you know, really coming through. This sort of like post-punk, going into more of a kind of, you know, not sort of ultra serious, you know, like doom and gloom sort of thing. Like maybe you could argue Joy Division would have been, but you know, this is sort of like new wave pop that maybe you know, had its sort of origins in kind of like the remnants of the punk scene a year or two previous. It's fascinating to me how all these sort of different musical genres can kind of splinter off, and then two that are like really different can be derived from the same thing, but like you get like a fan of one and a fan of the other, and like just wouldn't, you know, with tribalism and in music and everything, they just wouldn't like each other's favourite genre, but they'd be birthed from the same thing.
She's still there at number 1. It's Lena Martell.
Right, we got number 1 then. God, I don't like Mike really. He's got no charisma or scream personality. I think he was all right on his pop quiz. You know, he probably seemed a little bit more likeable. Well, you know, he couldn't be much less likeable. But on top of the pops, he always seemed like he were kind of there under sufferance. Anyway, presumably this is called One Day at a Time. This is by Lena Martell. Feels a bit anachronistic, this, to be number 1 as late as 1979, so it feels like this could be a reissue from something, I don't know, probably 20 years previous. Late 50s or early 60s maybe, I don't know. Or could be a cover version. I've heard this song, What a Day at a Time, Sweet Jesus. But whether it's an original from Lena Martell, it's difficult to tell what her age is there, really. She could be anything from about 25 to 55, really. Just the way she's dressed and the way her hair's done, really. I don't know. I'm not pitching a massive tent for this, to be honest. I think it's one of those songs that if you have a certain generation that you really love, and it's iconic and it brings back a load of nostalgia, and presumably it's a nostalgia factor that's got it to number 1 here in November 1979, but for me it's just a little bit too out of its time. You know, if I was reacting to this in 1969 even, it'd feel a little bit kind of cheesy. But it's not an awful song, it's just not my taste. But I think this has been, overall, a strong edition of Top of the Pops. And to say I feel like a bit out of my comfort zone whenever I do a 1970s one. It's nice that I've recognised a fair few of the acts, and the ones I haven't recognised, it's been a voyage of discovery today for me. I hope it has been for you as well. Of course, there will be another Top of the Pops reaction next month in December. It is all planned for, but I don't reveal what it's going to be, so you're going to have to wait and see on that one. But there's your number 1 for 43 years ago, Lena Martell.
Well, the number 1 spot has been 14 days at a time for Lena Martell, and 1 day at a time. That's it from us. We'll be back with lots more goodies next week on Top of the Pops. We'll say goodnight with Fleetwood Mac and Tusk. Bye-bye.
Oh, no we won't, because it's been cut for copyright. I want to say thank you for watching this. I want to say special thanks to my patrons and subscribers. I'm going to go now, and please will you join me again next month for my next Top of the Pops reaction. Cheers, everyone. See ya!